Broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hi everyone, and thanks for joining. And this is just a quick note to say we're just going to give probably people till 5 past the hour, just so that if people are running a bit late, they can catch the call. So just to let you know, we'll start in about 2 minutes or so. So we'll start then. Thanks. Right, I think we've given some people some time to get on board, so I think we'll go ahead and start the webinar. So I guess first thing to say is good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. And thanks very much for joining this Sales Methods webinar, just introducing OrgChartPlus version 5, as you can see on the screen there. And my name is Charlie Connor. I'm a business analyst at Sales Methods, and I'm just going to give you kind of a very brief overview of the tool. I think most of you will probably be aware of the tool and how it functions. So I'll just briefly recap kind of what the basics are, and then I'm just going to go into what the version 5 capabilities are, and then how you actually use those in terms of the functionality. And you can see my email is on the screen at the moment, and what I'll be doing after the webinar is I'll send out an email making sure that everyone is okay with everything, and then if we need to, I'm more than happy to set up one-on-one calls or just an email exchange after the webinar, so that we can straighten any issues out as well. There is a questions tab at the bottom of the webinar panel, I believe, on the right. So if you do have any questions as I'm going through, please feel free to jump in and put them in there, and I'll try and check them when I can. Or if not, obviously you can save it for an email, and I'll put my email address up on the screen at the end of the webinar as well. Just so that if you want to jot that down and then send me an email, you're more than welcome to. So I guess the easiest thing to do would be to just jump straight in to the tool. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to jump into my Salesforce here. So I've got my Salesforce open, and as I think most of you will probably be aware, is the way you access OrgChartPlus is you can access it either within accounts or opportunities. And the way you would enter is using this button at the top here. So this is just a dummy account that we use in Salesforce, and then all I have to do to open it up, just click on the button there. That then takes me into this view here, where I can either open a chart that I've previously created beforehand, and I'm not sure if you're aware or not, but you can create as many different charts as you actually like. So if you've got a massive account with loads of contacts and it just starts all to get a bit much, you can start to separate it down into smaller chunks, and that's something that we advise quite a lot. Or you can create your chart from scratch. You've got these two different types of charts here, and just for those in case they aren't aware, a reports to chart uses the reports to field in Salesforce to help you pre-populate charts, whereas a decision tree chart is more of a free-flowing chart, whereas so you can put people at the top of the chart who don't necessarily report into the people above them, but it just allows you to have a lot more flexibility in terms of the actual chart that you're building. You're then able to import contacts from your account in Salesforce, and because the tool is native, it uses all the information in Salesforce. So anything that you do in Salesforce will reflect in this tool and vice versa. And then you can also bring in your account team as well if you wanted to. I'm just going to open up a chart that we've previously created just to save us some time. And I'll open up this global chart here. So if I click on open, that'll then take us to this first view, which is what we call the matrix. So OrgChartPlus has 3 different views. So we've got this view, which is the matrix. We've got the second view here, which is the org chart view, as we can see. And then we've got this final view, which is what we call the molecule. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I'm just going to go over this very briefly because I think that most of you will probably be aware. But the matrix is just about getting down the information that we're then going to leverage in the second 2 views. So down here on the left-hand side, we've got client contacts. We've got team members up the top here, so our colleagues. We can also include some competitors as well. And then once we've actually done that, we can then do a couple of things. We can start to build out the characteristics of these individuals over here on the left. So we've got the influence of the individual, so how influential they are within their own organization. We've then got the opinion that this person has of us, so whether they like us or not. And then what we can actually see over here in the middle of the screen is what we call levels of intimacy. So these are reflecting the strength of relationship that exists between the 2 individuals. And it goes up, and if you look over here at these attributes, it goes all the way from they're a target of ours, but we're not in contact with them, all the way to there's a strong relationship that exists there. So again, that's just a brief intro on the matrix view. This is the place where most people would start building their org charts because it's just kind of about getting the data into the tool that we're then going to use in the next 2 views. The second view, which is this org chart view here, is obviously where we actually build out the org chart. And again, I'm sure most of you are aware, but it's just a simple drag and drop process in terms of actually building the charts. So obviously this is a pre-built one, but what you would see at the top when you first start to use the tool is you'd see the contact boxes lined up in what we call the loading bay up the top here. And then all you have to do to build out the chart is just simply drag and drop them down onto here, and then it starts to build out for you. Again, there's a lot of information on this page, so we can start to see some informal relationships as well. We can see the influence there behind these contact boxes, so that shading. We've got the opinion of these individuals and intimacy as well. So again, a bit more information. I'm not going to go through that at the moment, but if it's something you wanted to maybe refresh yourselves on, please feel free to chuck down an email to me, and then we can set up a private call or something like that. So again, and then this is just a brief overview of this view. And then we've got this final view, which is the molecule. And this is built itself, so you don't have to worry about dragging and dropping or anything like that, but it uses the information from the previous 2 views to actually go ahead and build the chart. So what we can see at the moment is we've got us in the middle as an organization, and then our people closest into us are our closest allies. So we've got strong relationships with all these guys. And as we start to move out, the relationships get weaker and weaker. And we've got somebody like Boris over here who doesn't like us and has got a lot of influence. And the great thing about this view is, and the way that I get the most value out of it as well, is if I go to this focus area at the top and I click on this drop down, I could actually go and then choose Boris. So if I click on Boris Becker, that then puts Boris in the middle of the particular view and then builds all his relationships out as well. So if we wanted to get in touch with Boris, maybe to win his support back, these guys might be the perfect people because these green boxes are our team members, whereas the grey boxes are the client contacts as well. And then just to go back to the standard view, which is that highest intimacy, again, I just click on that and then it takes us back to this view for us. So again, that's kind of just a very, very brief overview of the 3 different views that we've got and kind of what the functionality is of those. Then we start to look at how we can actually export these images. So, and this is where the version 5 sort of comes into play, because the newest feature that we've got is being able to export all of these views into Microsoft Office, so Word, PowerPoint, and Excel. So originally what we would do is, and where all the exporting capabilities exist, is in this chart button up the top here. So if I was to click on that, I've got some admin at the top here, but then down here I can see I've got these 4 different options. So originally it was just the options that you had where you could print a chart. So if you wanted to take it into a meeting, I could click on that. It would bring up this kind of sheet of paper. I can then start to reorientate and sort of resize the paper and things like that. I can print a legend if I wanted to. And again, we can just go away and print if you wanted to take it into a meeting or something like that. The other options that we had were these options here. So we had the option to export to an image. I'll talk about these two, which is the version 5 in a minute, but the original version was just this export to image. So if I click on that, what it will then do is it allows you to sort of crop this image to whichever way you would like it to look. So you can move all these lines and things like that. You then just simply have to give the image a name, click on Show Legend, which will then give you a legend down here in the bottom corner. And then once you give it a name and click on Save, it would then just download to your actual computer. And you can put it in an email or a Word document and things like that, but it would just be a flat image file as well. The other option that we had was export as attachment, which is exactly the same process, but it doesn't download to your computer. It just downloads to the notes and attachments section on the account or opportunity. So it's a very useful feature to have. So if somebody doesn't necessarily have access to the tool within your organization, but you wanted them to have a look at this image, you could then attach it as an image onto the Salesforce record, and they can go and have a look at it that way as well. And then the last option that we had was this export as web page URL, which is the same in this version, as it just creates a link that we can send to people if we wanted to take them straight here. So now to talk about the version 5 improvements, and I'll start with just this exporting here. And what we can do with this org chart view is we can export it directly into either a Word document or a PowerPoint presentation. And with the matrix view, which I'll show you in a second, you can also export that to Excel if you wanted to. So it's incredibly easy to use and it's pretty intuitive. So I'll just demonstrate how you can do this. So if you click on Export to Document, which is Word, that then just brings up this little dialog box here. And then what we can do is we can either do one of two things. So we can either choose a document that we've already got on our computer, as you can see here. So if you're working on an account review or just any specific document which you would like to include your org chart in, you can just click on Browse. It will then go into your file on your computer, and you can start to pick from any Word documents that you've got on your computer. Or the other option is you can use a template that we've created. So what you can see here is we've got A4 template, A4 portrait, landscape, and then letter as well. And then this is phase 1 of the tool, but one of the things that we'll also be doing is we'll also be including you'll be able to upload any template you like to Salesforce, and then you'll be able to reference that template in this list here. So just for the purposes of this, I'll just use A4 landscape, and then we can also choose to show a legend tool as well. And then so if I click on show legend and then click on OK, it then just simply downloads. So I'm using Firefox at the moment, so this is how it downloads using that. And then it obviously just asks me what do I want to open it with, Microsoft Word, default. So if I click on OK, it's actually an incredibly quick process in order to actually open it up as well. So you can see my words opening here, and there we go, it's already there for us. So that's kind of literally how quick it is in order to populate these charts into a Word or any document that we've got. But one of the great things about this is it's actually still editable within this view. So one of the things that I can do is, and obviously one of the things that will happen a lot within big organizations, is people will move roles or move departments or whatever it happens to be. Somebody might get replaced. So one of the great things about this is it's all still actually editable within this format. So if I thought this person's name changed, I'll just zoom in a bit to make it a bit easier. There you go. I can then actually go ahead and change these names as well. So if I wanted to then delete this person, and maybe say, I don't know who it is, so just put in a question mark, we can then do that as well. So that's obviously an improvement that means that instead of just kind of importing a flat image into your documents, you can actually export these live images where you can actually go in and change them. And you can even start to delete things. I mean, I wouldn't advise trying to manually manipulate the org chart because obviously it separates itself out, so it becomes a little bit tricky to drag and drop all this kind of thing. But in terms of just changing small things like titles or names and things like that, this is all still incredibly easy. And one of the things with these informal relationships as well, we can actually delete those if we wanted to. So if I just wanted to delete that, that's nice and simple for us as well. So that's just kind of an illustration of the Word capabilities in terms of exporting these documents into Word. And we can obviously do that with any of the three views. So I think you might have noticed there I had this one open as well, which we can see this. So this is the molecule having been exported directly into Word. And again, it's all editable here as well. So if I wanted to change anything, I could do. The other option that we've got as well is the PowerPoint, which I think will often be maybe used a little bit more than Word, just because I think when people are doing presentations or things like that, then an org chart is often maybe a key part of an account plan or something like that. So if I go to export again and I choose export to presentation, it's pretty much exactly the same dial, exactly the same pop-up box, and we can either browse a PowerPoint that we've already got, or we can select a template as well, so we can just use a blank presentation there. But in terms of browsing, if I look and go and look for this, I've got this OrgChartPlus 4.0. So this is the last time I think we did a presentation or something like that on the last version of the tool. So if I wanted maybe just include this org chart in this presentation, one of the great things about this is I can actually then go and choose which slide I want it to appear after. So for example, I've obviously got 13 slides in this particular presentation, but if I wanted to put it after the end slide, I would just click on 12. And then if I click on Show Legend, click on OK, exactly the same process happens. It asks me that I will obviously want to open it in PowerPoint, click on OK, and then it will go and open that for us as well. So I've got, here's my document, and if I scroll down to the end, here it is. So after slide 12, slide 13, we've got the image straight away in there for us as well. And again, if I enable editing, all of this stuff is exactly the same way as Word. It's all editable. I can move it as an image as a whole, as you can see there. So I'm not being stopped from doing that. And I can also do that with this legend down here. So if I wanted to move that, it separates itself out. So I can start to make it a bit more compact, or however way I'd like to do that as well. So again, that's incredibly, well, I think it's a very easy and quick process to do, and it's going to really help the kind of adoption of this, because it will be able to obviously export it into documents that might have taken a bit longer previously. But one of the things which we can also do, which I mentioned, is with the matrix view, we can export this to an Excel spreadsheet as well. So if I click on chart and go down to these exporting as well, I just have this extra option of export to spreadsheet. And I mean, I'm by no means a kind of an Excel wizard or anything like that, but some people might be able to maybe do some analytics on this kind of thing. So if I clicked on export to spreadsheet, again, I can either choose a file on my computer, or I can select a blank workbook. And again, it's just a very simple process. Click on OK, and then that will open it up for us in there as well. So, and here we go. So a slight difference in that it doesn't use the images, and it changes the images to words so that we can see a bit more clearly in here. And then that will also allow us to do a little bit more analytics work on this actual tool as well, so that if we're not having to try and reference images within the tool or anything like that. So I think that's kind of pretty much everything in terms of the actual functionality of it and things like that. That's kind of everything that I can show you. In terms of maybe a couple of hints that I've got, obviously using this, you're going to be limited to the amount of space that you've actually got within your document. So if it's an A4 page or a PowerPoint presentation, you're going to be limited to that kind of space. So one of the things that you can do is, using the tool, you can try and change the layout. So perhaps if I'm using an A4 page, one of the things I can do is that I might want to narrow down. if I right click on one of these guys, I've got this layout option down the bottom here. So at the moment, all of it's laid out horizontally, so subordinates are laid out horizontally. But if I wanted to change that to vertically, and if I click on that, you can then see there that it starts to make it a bit more narrow. So if I wanted to narrow the org chart down into something like that, then I'm more than capable of doing that. And that might help you in terms of the space that you've got on the page. And then the other option that we've got as well, if I right click on somebody like David, if I'm not necessarily interested about who works for him, but I want him in the org chart, again, if I go to layout, I can actually hide all of his subordinates. So if I click on that, then that arrow will appear there and it just hides the people that I've got beneath him. So those are just a couple of hit tips if I'm struggling for space on the page. But I mean, obviously you're going to be limited to what the actual document can do in terms of the spacing that you've got already. So, I mean, I think that's pretty much kind of everything that I wanted to go over today. I know it was a pretty short kind of session and it was kind of a bit of a flying tour of what we've got in the new version. And like I said, I'm more than happy if anybody wants to kind of email me for a bit more of an in-detail kind of look at this, or if they wanted to set up a call and then, or just ask me some questions over email. I'll just put my email back up on the screen now so that you can have a look. But I mean, other than that, I'm looking at the questions on the webinar and I can't actually see any at the moment, which I hope is a good thing. So, I mean, in terms of that, thanks very much for coming along, guys, and having a listen. We hope you enjoy the new feature, and I guess all I can say is good luck with it. And if you need any help, then please feel free to give me a shout. So thanks very much, guys, and have a good rest of your day.